Welcome to the 2026 ChannelX Leaders Interviews, and I'm especially honoured today to be joined by a government representative, Emma Jones, MBE and Small Business Commissioner. Welcome, Emma. Emma, how are you?
I'm very good, Chris, and I'm very honoured to be joining you. So the honour is very mutual.
Well, for those that don't know, we've known each other, I don't know how long, it's well over a decade. I think might be 20 years or longer.
I agree. I was going to say, it makes me feel very old when I meet people these days. And I literally met someone yesterday and I said, I don't think I've seen you for 20 years, which I then have to take a bit of a take because I still feel I'm only 18.
Well, Emma, you're still relatively new in the role in terms of how long I've known you. But for those that don't know, you're now Small Business Commissioner. What is a Small Business Commissioner? What does the office do, and what's your role?
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm glad you asked that kind of first question because I know that you and I have chatted about it. But one of the things I have tried to do since coming into role, which was in July 2025, is to go out and about across the UK, sharing with small businesses what exactly the office does. So by way of background, the Office of the Small Business Commissioner was set up in 2017, back end of 2017, 2018, and its remit remains the same as it was when it was first created, which is very straightforward, and it's got a single focus, which is to make sure that small businesses get paid on time. So the role of the Small Business Commissioner is all about prompt payment. And just a tiny bit on the structure of how we work. I run what's called an arm's length body. So this means I report into the Department for Business and Trade, but we are slightly separate to it. So I guess by virtue of the definition, we are slightly at arm's length to the department. But yes, as you say, I joined in July 2025 from a background of having started, grown and then sold my own businesses. And the mission that I've kind of set with the team, and we're very much kind of still working on this mission. I've got a small and mighty team of 14 people. And the mission that we're on is how do we make life easier for small businesses by getting money moving quicker through the economy and into their hands.
And I really appreciate that. And I have to say, knowing I was going to talk to you today, I had a quick look at my Xero this morning, and I do have 4 outstanding invoices, but none of them are overdue yet.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, I would like to rely on you, Chris Dawson, for being a prompt payer. If everybody was, my job.
Oh no, this is people that owe me. I've already paid all the bills I owe.
Well, I was actually saying this the other day, is in a way our job is to make ourselves redundant. So when the UK gets to a point where we have super prompt payment, and I will talk in a minute around what that looks like, then there won't be a need for an office. So we're kind of one of those organisations that's trying to make ourselves extinct if we can do the right job.
Yeah, and I'm all in favour of that, or I'll be ashamed to see you go. But you've been in the role since July 2025. And you've had predecessors. I think your immediate predecessor was the lovely Liz Barclay.
That's right.
But since coming into the role, it's been sort of 9 months. What have you achieved?
Well, I'd like to think we've achieved a lot. As I say, I have a very small and mighty team behind me. But yeah, Chris, I'd love to kind of trot off a couple of the things that we feel particularly have been our milestone moments. And bearing in mind that the government year starts on the 1st of April. So essentially we signed off on our final quarter of 25-26 at the end of March. And actually at that point, I did do a document for internal circulation across government to share with stakeholders to say, right, here are the things that we've achieved. The number one that I always lead on, because it's most important to small businesses, is on behalf of small businesses, we've reclaimed over 1.5 million in unpaid invoices. And what I always then go on to say, because this kind of is really important to me, is 1.5 million retrieved of late payments on behalf of small businesses, which is an amount that exceeds the annual cost of our office to the taxpayer. So
that's your profit making.
So even though, as I then go on to say, I know that money doesn't come into the treasury, it goes back out to small businesses who've earned it. But yes, we are bringing in more than we cost the taxpayer. We run something on behalf of the Department for Business and Trade called the Fair Payment Code. We've signed up an amazing just under 600 businesses onto that code, including big household names, NatWest, Amy, Heathrow Airport. We were just talking about accounting software. Intuit is on the code. So we're working really hard to make sure that we can celebrate businesses who are doing the right thing and paying on time through the code. So that's kind of been a brilliant kind of milestone. We're increasing our amount of content, which I say this to a content producer. We're increasing the amount of content we produce for small businesses on how to contract well in order to get paid on time. But Chris, probably the biggest moment happened on the 24th of March. So just before we finished our financial year 25-26, which is that the government came out with its response to a late payment consultation. And I know that you followed this, but just for kind of the benefit of your viewers and listeners, pretty much as soon as I came into role, so on the 31st of July, the Prime Minister launched a small business plan. And a big thing that was kind of led on that day was that the government issued a consultation on measures it was considering to essentially tighten up on late payment. So a consultation came out consulting on 9 proposed measures. The government took over 800 responses from businesses large and small that kind of came back in, digested all of that, considered all of the representations that had been made. And then on the 24th of March, which was a huge day, I think, for small businesses, government came out and said its intent was to take forward all of those 9 measures. Mm-hmm. And really briefly, what does that mean if you're a small business? It means that the UK has an intention to move to a maximum 60-day payment term economy, which is huge news. This means for any small business that has previously had to sign a contract with 90 or 120 days, that will just become extinct. So that's a big move. The government has an intent to say, right, any late invoices, there'll be an automatic application of 8% mandatory interest above the Bank of England base rate. There's a dispute window that you've only got 30 days to dispute an invoice. More powers to the Office of the Small Business Commissioner to kind of make sure that all of this is enforced. So essentially, Chris, government came out and said, right, you know, we want to get a bit more feisty on this because we can't afford to keep having businesses go out of business or for business owners to lose non-productive hours by simply chasing invoices for work they've already delivered.
So I think there's 2 big takeaways for me so far. Number one is small businesses are going to be paid faster, maximum 60 days. And I've got to say, my terms are always 30 days, but I kind of allow 30 days end of following month. So if I cut an invoice on the 15th, I'm expecting that sort of the 30th of the following month, 45 days. If I cut an invoice on the 1st, then it might be 60 days, but that's my maximum. And interest, if it's paid late, automatically. But I think the other thing is you mentioned the 1.5 million you've retrieved for small businesses from late payments. And I think it's worth focusing on that. This isn't just people you got their invoices paid. This is probably people who've got really aged invoices that they're almost going to write the money off and not get paid for the work they've done. But you've managed to retrieve that money. So this is the most difficult invoices that you've been helping with.
And I have to say, Chris, it's all credit to the casework team we have, which again, it's an amazing thing because there's just 2 of them in this team and they are great representatives of the office because, as you can imagine, these are delicate situations. A small business comes to us, they don't want to injure the relationship they've got with their client. So our casework team have to manage this in a very diplomatic and kind of sensitive way. And I have seen the testimonials that come back from small businesses for whom we've retrieved their money. And as you can imagine, they are insanely grateful because not only does this cause cash flow issues in your business if you're not getting paid on time, it then causes anxiety issues that you're kind of like, well, if I don't get paid, I maybe haven't got the cash to pay salaries. I maybe haven't got the cash to pay myself and my own bills. So that causes an accumulated effect on the founder.
I wanted to ask about this because mental health for late payments, I know you've done some work on this. Can you just expand a bit? Because it is, as a small business, you're reliant on getting paid. You've not got a regular monthly salary. You've still got bills. You've still got tax returns. You've still got yourself and your family to feed. What is the impact on mental health? And I'm guessing this maximum 60 days is going to bring relief for those that are stressed over getting paid.
Well, hopefully it will bring relief, but I'll come back to that because I hope there's the kind of wider package brings relief. But yes, it's just, and this is where it kind of comes back to hopefully my experience of having been a small business owner. I have lived and breathed this soulless task where, as I say, you've delivered for clients. Quite often, these can be very large customers where you as a business are cash flowing a huge company. And so you're kind of like, this doesn't seem right. We've delivered what we said we would deliver on. So it's a soulless task having to kind of chase for it. And then, as you say, it can cause anxiety if it takes too long in that bill getting paid. The one thing I will say, Chris, that I have noticed, or not noticed, but kind of have had evidence of since starting in the role is most cases that come in, the small business will call us up. They'll say, right, I've had this kind of late invoice. When we contact the larger company, it's not that they don't want to pay. Quite often, it is purely a system error. It is that the larger company has moved on to a new payment set of processes, or the invoice got lost, or the incorrect details were on the invoice. And maybe we'll come on to kind of top tips for trying to get paid on time, because getting the details right on your invoice is kind of like, prompt payment 101.
My favourite one is, we've got the invoice, but we still haven't signed off on the contract. It's still with our legal team.
Well, so this is the thing, and we'll talk about this because it's the whole journey from that kind of seeing the contract, onboarding in the first place. And this is why, again, having come into role, there are so many layers to what causes late payment. And therefore, the job in the office is to make sure we're kind of touching all of those layers to say, right, let's work with those big procurement onboarding platforms to make it as easy as possible for small businesses to onboard, so that doesn't create a time lag. Let's work with accounts payable teams to say, right, how can you deliver education to your SME suppliers on what you're looking for on the invoices, so we don't have this situation that when the business thinks they're going to get paid, it's only at that point that accounts payable say, oh, well, no, your invoice isn't correct, so you need to resubmit, and the clock starts ticking again. So there's all of these factors. But coming back to it, as I say, in the main, it's not companies that don't want to pay. It's just kind of system errors, communication breakdown. But of course, when you get an email from the office of the Small Business Commissioner saying, come on, we've heard from this small business,
pay attention.
It gets paid. And this is what we hear from a lot of the cases is, bless them, these founders say, I've been trying to chase this for months, and one email from you seems to unblock the system. So that's kind of our job. And this is where it really helps to have a government mark on your email, because it gives that authority to say, come on, you can't treat your small suppliers like that because it doesn't benefit anyone. You need to pay up.
So I do have a question. I know on your list of fair code that you've got some of the marketplaces. I can remember eBay's on there, for example. There's one big one that's not on there, but we'll leave them nameless for today. But how are you working with marketplaces on the payment and the wider SME agenda? Because we just kind of assume a marketplace is always going to pay us on time until that day that there's a KYC investigation or KYB and you need to supply business information. Suddenly payments are on hold unexpectedly. What are you doing in this area?
Well, this has been one of the things that we really have focused on since I came in. And actually, Chris, the very first meeting that I called as Small Business Commissioner was with the major marketplaces. And this was because something that's well known to you is, as you say, Liz Barkley was my predecessor. Liz went through phases where lots of cases were coming in from marketplace sellers. And fortunately, due to my background and experience at Enterprise Nation, I had great relationships with most of the major marketplaces. So when I came into role, I said, look, it seems to be some friction in this area. Will you all come in and let's have a chat about it? And essentially, Chris, what we've done, and I am so enjoying working with the marketplaces on this because I can see the positive impact it's having on sellers, is we've said, look, the thing that creates so much frustration with your sellers is they understand you have to do your KYC check. But what frustrates them is when they're trying to make contact to kind of, they've provided the information, they want to know when their funds are going to be, kind of opened up to them. They get in this doom loop of automation and they can't talk to a human.
Yeah.
And we all know how frustrating that is in our lives as consumers and businesses. So I know it sounds really basic, but one of the things that we set up is we ask the marketplaces to sign what we call a fair payment pledge. And the main sort of basis of that is that if you have to put your accounts on hold, you will communicate with your sellers to let them know time expectation. If you can, give them the reasons for why you're doing it, but the marketplaces can't always do that. And can you give us an accountable human contact in your respective businesses? So when cases come to us, we can take them to a human. And that, I have to say, has worked really well. So when cases come in across different marketplaces, we now have a go-to person. And as I say, on behalf of the small businesses, they just say, thank you so much, because it just means I can escalate this and actually find out what's going on with my case. So I've enjoyed working with the marketplaces. And again, you know them very well, Chris. They are all amenable to getting this right, because their sellers' success equals success for the platform. So they don't want good sellers. I'm not talking about the bad players here, because they've got to be careful and, make sure that bad players aren't on their platforms. But for those who are the good sellers, they want to make sure that they've got a great business that they're running with cash flow coming in so they can keep building on that particular platform. So hopefully more to come with the marketplaces. But it's been a great experience with them so far.
Fantastic news. So that's marketplaces, but I want to go back to people that are invoicing bigger companies. Now, I just want to get some advice from you on small businesses, how to get paid on time. And I've got to say that SMEs chasing people that owe them money is probably the most uncomfortable part of the business. Excuse me, you owe me money. Can you pay me, please? It's asking for money, even when you're owed it, it's not really a very British thing to do. We're kind of embarrassed about it. How do we get over the embarrassment? And what's the straightforward top tips for getting paid quickly when it's overdue?
Yeah, well, great question. And Chris, I'm hoping that technology is going to help us get over that embarrassment. So I'll mention that in a moment.
Well, e-invoicing is coming, isn't it?
Well, e-invoicing. And in fact, following this interview, I'm about to interview the head of product at Sage, where one of the questions I'm going to be asking him is, how are you building your product? Because most of the big three cloud accounting partners now, so Sage, Xero, Intuit, they've all got AI chasing agents built into their products. So this is why it can kind of take the embarrassment out for the founder, because the technology hopefully does it. But just a slight little rewind before it gets to that point. We've already mentioned this, but I do think good payment starts from the point of good contracting. So when you get that contract in from well, even before then, if you're about to do business with a large business, I would say check to see if they are on the fair payment code, because and I know as small businesses, we can't always choose with whom we work. However, we are seeing small businesses want to gravitate towards businesses that are going to pay them on time. So check.
At the very least, you can just ask them, what are your payment terms? Mine are normally 30 days. Is that okay?
So that's the thing. If they're on the fair payment code, you can see what the terms are. In the contract, have a look at the terms, because again, I've been there as a small business owner. You just sign it. You don't necessarily look. You're so overjoyed you've got the contract in the first place. So look at the terms. And this is where it comes back to this point we mentioned before about relief for small business owners. If we can get this legislation to pass, I really want small businesses to understand their rights, that when a contract comes through, that when the legislation hopefully comes into effect, the maximum that they will be kind of asked to accept is a 60-day payment term. So look at the contract, see what the terms and conditions are, maybe question it at that point to say, look, is there any move for flexibility? But also at that point, find out, okay, what is it that you need on the invoice in order for me to have a successful payment experience? So, do you need a PO number? To whom should it be submitted? How many days can you expect it to be paid? To whom should you follow up if it's kind of not getting paid? So kind of get all that housekeeping in order. submit the invoice, and then this is where it comes into, if it hasn't been paid, use your accounting software, or indeed if you have got a bookkeeper or accountant, this is what can take the embarrassment away as well, because you can have like a credit control function in the business. This is for slightly bigger businesses, but they can do the chasing on your behalf. And, you know, if you have to keep on chasing, if at first you don't succeed, keep trying. But if that is no good, that's where you come to the casework team and say, look, I'm just not having success. But if you can follow all of those steps, hopefully all of that alleviates the need to come to us.
So get down to it right at the beginning, when you're, even when you're quoting and negotiating, start asking at the beginning rather than waiting until you submitted an invoice and then wondering why it's not paid.
Absolutely. And just a final thing on this, because sometimes it can be contractual. One thing that we're seeing in sectors like IT is the technicians will agree what the contract is, but maybe the finance team don't understand if those contractual milestones have been met. So again, just make sure that both your client and the finance team are aligned on, if there's any stage payments, what is the definition of us having delivered it. So yeah, do that work up front. It's kind of like, I guess, getting married is kind of do all the bit when everyone's at the happy point. And then hopefully that kind of stands you in good stead for getting that payment when it's due.
Oh, Emma, I want to thank you so much for your time today. But for anyone that is struggling to get paid, how do they get in touch with the Office of Small Business Commissioner?
Well, we're very accessible. So direct contact with me on LinkedIn, direct contact with the office on LinkedIn. If you go onto our website, you can file a case through that route. You can apply to the Fair Payment Code through that route. So yes, I would say smallbusinesscommissioner.gov.uk, or we're across the major social platforms.
Very simple. And if you're watching this, we'll put the link just below this video, so you'll be able to find it easily. Emma, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. Lovely to speak to you.